What's the word, y'all? This is Pastor Dallas with today's Real Talk from the Heart. Today's Real Talk comes from the book of Psalms, and this is Psalm 18. Psalm 18, verse 6. This is the word of the Lord. In my distress, I called upon the Lord and cried out to my God. He heard my voice from his temple, and my cry came before him, even to his ears. You know, we all have our days of distress. Man, we all have our days of distress, maybe work related, maybe at work, maybe on the job. Man, we're going through some very distressful times. Maybe even in our marriage. You know, marriages go through days of distress as well. Maybe in our relationships, man, maybe between us and our children, or us and our, parents or siblings or some friends. Maybe your relationship is strained and you're going through days of distress, or maybe in your finances, man. We all know that finances have their days of distress as well, where we can become stressed out, and then there's the area of health. Sometimes we can go through days of distress in our health. I know this year, man, and the end of last year was crazy, dealing with nerve pain and dealing with arthritis in my knee, and it's just been a crazy thing that's caused a lot of distress in my own life. And then I think back, man, there was a time in my life, man, before Christ, there was a time in my life when I would de-stress from the distress by hitting the pipe, by popping a pill, pouring a drink. There were times I would de-stress by vegging out, playing video games for hours. But then I started to realize that it was only numbing me for a brief moment. It was only giving me a temporary relief from the stress I was feeling, but it didn't do anything to address the cause or the source of the distress. And then I found myself addicted. I found myself self-absorbed, because those are two things that days of distress can cause if we're not careful. And living under that heaviness and that weight, as we begin to rely on other things, especially, of the chemical nature, right? Alcohol, drugs, and those kinds of things. As we begin to rely on that, we become dependent on those things. Well, then addiction sets in. And that's what happened in my life, beloved. I became addicted, but secondly, I became self-absorbed. It was, oh, woe is me. Oh, poor me, man. Look what I'm going through. Look at the heaviness I got to carry in life, man. Look what I've had to deal with. Look what I've gone through. And I became very self-absorbed in that distress. But, beloved, then I learned that I could call on the Lord, who actually cares for me. He says in his word, cast all your cares upon me, for I care for you. I learned that he truly cares deeply about me. And beloved, listen, he cares deeply about you too. Every detail of your life is his concern. That's how much he cares about you and me. And so I learned to take all my cares to the Lord, take all my worries, all my heaviness, man, all my distress. I learned to take it to the Lord, and that he could get me through the distressing times of life. There's a lot of times, guys, I'll be honest, he never kept me from the distressing times, but he got me through it. He got me through those distressing times, and I didn't have to pop a pill. I didn't have to hit the pipe. I didn't have to pour a drink. I didn't have to run to the video games, or I didn't have to run to some hobby or some, pastime. All I had to do was run into his open arms and be held, and let him get me through, and let him teach me the lesson found in the distressing times. I want to ask you this morning, who or what are you relying on? Who or what are you calling on in your distress? David says, in my distress, I called upon the Lord. He says, I cried out to my God. That's what he says. I cried out to my God. And it says, and he heard me. He heard me. He says, and my cry came before him, even to his ears. Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed today. Maybe you're feeling like, man, the demands of life are crushing you, man. The weight of the world is just pressing you down. Man, I want to encourage you, man. Listen, God is real help. in my own experience, man, I've tried everything. I went on vacations, man, I bought the nice stuff, man, I did everything that the world said would help me get some kind of relief from the distress. I've tried all that. Smoked the weed, popped the pills, drank, did all those things, the party in life and all that was gonna, help lift it off. But listen, it did not help, man. It did not help. It was only, again, a temporary relief. It was only a momentary reprieve. But real help is found in the one who is, listen, the ever-present help. David said, I look to the hills from which my help comes. If you want real help to get you through your days of distress, man, I want to point you to the Lord Jesus Christ, man. Humble yourself. Acknowledge your need for him. Cry out to him, man, from your very heart, from your very being, man. Cry out with all your heart. I guarantee, man, he'll come through. And that distressing thing at work, that distressing thing in your marriage, that distressing thing in that relationship, or again, man, in your health or in your finances, listen, he's going to get you through that time. But you've got to call on him. David said, I called on him in my distress. He didn't say, I thought about calling upon him. He said, I called on him. And I'll encourage you today, man, cry out to God with all your heart today. And whatever you're going through, he's going to get you through. The Lord loves you. I love you too. And I'm praying for you today. I ask that you please be praying for me as well. Thank you for tapping in for some real talk from the heart. I hope you'll catch me on the next video.